All right, everyone, it's a little bit strange right now, actually, the reaction to this particular story, because remember, people on the right, traditionally speaking, have been very, very pro-Israeli in the United States. You get the evangelicons, they think that literally if there's a Jewish homeland, that Jesus can come back or something sooner. Which is wrong, but they believe in it, so it's sort of the way they are. Benjamin Netanyahu, the leader of the Israeli state, may get brought up on corruption charges. I think specifically, if I remember correctly, related to bribery. And I believe his wife has already been brought up on charges and is literally like being investigated as we speak. And this isn't the first time, by the way, that the Netanyahus have had problems with stuff related to money. I think 2 years ago, if I remember correctly, they had a case where they were looking into some of their personal expenses. And actually, if you look at like their house and stuff, it's not quite as lavish as a lot of world leaders. It actually is a bit more homely than some of them. I mean, they still live in a mansion, but it's not exactly the White House, not quite as posh, which is strange. I would have thought that someone with sort of that cigar-smoking, vodka-swilling mentality would be like, mini dictator light and have like a Saddam palace or something. It's actually slightly odd, but the left, which encompasses in the United States about 80% of the Jewish vote here, which is a little bit strange as well, it actually is responding to this with glee, which is funny because a few years ago, if you did that, you'd be called an anti-Semite, I suppose, but now they actually find it great. I guess it's because Netanyahu is conservative, so-called. Not really, but he's supposedly, there's still a high tax state in Israel to the point where people go to Germany to save money. There was a funny story a couple years ago. I remember there was a certain kind of pudding. I can't remember its name. It's like German. And they were like, oh, this costs so much in Israel. Here in Germany, it's like half as much. Meanwhile, someone over here in the United States, we look at Germany and we're like, oh, taxed up the ass and everything costs a lot. Europe is pricey generally. You'd think you'd go to like Colombia if you want to save money. You wouldn't go to Germany. I guess things are so high tax and high cost there because of the economic situation that they go to Germany for a little bit of a buying holiday. They go shopping in Munich. They go shopping in London or Paris. It's Paris is cheap now, but you know what I mean. It's actually funny. But Netanyahu might get indicted for corruption other than, the more obvious crimes, they get ignored. The world community sees them, but, they sort of get shielded from it. Like, oh, Netanyahu gleefully decided that you would conduct a strike that wiped out an orphanage. Netanyahu decided to disperse this crowd with live fire. So if he does that, that's okay. Like, the Israeli media there doesn't crucify him for it. But if he bribed somebody or embezzled a little bit of money, then the Israeli police are like, oh, well, we got to take care of this and take care of business. It's like, at least there's that one thing that's being maintained in the sense of actually having a little bit of accountability within their political system. I just find it very funny because it's like you've got this big a mountain of skulls that you're ignoring for a bribery case, basically. That's what it boils down to. Now, before anyone says, well, you're siding with those Muslims, the Palestinians. No, I'm saying that everyone there has some blame. Everyone has problems. It's a part of the world that hasn't really seen continuous peace in, some number of thousands of years. I'm not going to hold my breath waiting for it now. But this is about the secular side. This isn't really about the religion of Judaism versus the religion of Islam sort of stuff, or even necessarily statehood in that sense. This is about just the leader of one of these states, that apparently is corrupt. Now, I think there are plenty of people who would have guessed that. But then again, all of these world leaders are corrupt. There are very few of them that don't like embezzle and bribe and stab people in the back and blackmail and do crazy shit. Now, Netanyahu, in that sense, is just one of the boys. But then again, so is Angela Merkel. In fact, she's the most masculine of them all. A little bit of a problem for her, I think. So that things stopped working properly, biologically speaking, maybe 15, 20 years ago. It's become, she's got that sourpuss look. I don't know. It must be from drinking beer out of a dog bowl. But, her ale, her piss beer, gets Budweiser imported or something from I believe the Netherlands now. It's no longer U.S. beer. And some of it's brewed here, but it's no longer a U.S. firm, sadly. Meanwhile, you got Israel. Probably a beer costs $5-6 over there. And you don't have to go to a bar to see those prices. Here, it's expensive. If you got charged that much, you'd think you were getting bilked unless you were already drunk. Meanwhile, over there, Netanyahu throws money at people, I guess, to bribe them politically. Now, while embezzling as well. Supposedly, I don't believe he was ever indicted on that case because I don't think they dug up enough evidence. This time, apparently, they did. I'm not sure exactly what the evidence is, but they're recommending charges. Now, it could be that he doesn't get charged, and he's being slightly dismissive of the whole scenario. He's like, well, basically poo-poo to you. That could be an indicator that maybe he bribed the person who would have to make the decision in order to bring him up on bribery charges. That would be a new one. That would be hilarious. It would be straight out of sort of maybe the Eastern Europe / Russian bloc playbook, which is funny, of course, because Netanyahu, his origins, they're not Middle Eastern. In his case, it's very much the Eastern European sort of region. Not exactly, I believe it's the Sephardic lineage is from the Levant Middle East region, I think. And there are multiple sort of, basically tribal groups, basically sub-ethnicities. He is not part of that group, I believe. I believe it'd be a little bit north of there. I think they determine that some people there had basically strictly a Turkish lineage, actually. I think they did a study on that some time ago. Some of those groups of people, they would have literally been migrating through the sort of steppe, Armenia, southern Russia, into the Chechenian region, that sort of area. It's actually interesting to look at the genetic studies on these things. But if Netanyahu is being corrupt, look, the Israeli people, and the Palestinians too, live in a constant state of basically a slow simmering civil chaos, in which you never know if a rocket is going to fly through your window or if a grenade is going to be hurled at your car. Because of that, I would think at the very least you would want stability in the highest office with regards to the, president or prime minister. I can't remember which his title is. I think you would want that particular office to be filled by someone who, as close to possible, is beyond reproach. Now, it's funny because, as an aside here, religiously speaking, a lot of the evangelocons here think that the leadership of Israel is a religious authority and thus beyond reproach, that Israeli policy, domestic or foreign, is, if you question it, you're being against Jesus or something. Read your Bibles. It couldn't be anything further from the truth. Actually, if you're looking at a strict interpretation of the doctrine and dogma, their authorities should be specifically religious. The Orthodox Jews should be the ones running the show. Right now, it is an enforced secular system where Orthodox Jews can't even go up on the Temple Mount. Like Israeli troops prevent them from doing that in order to appease the Islamic population because the Dome of the Rock is a mosque. It's the funniest thing you can think of. Because people think that, Netanyahu must be like the Lord Rabbi or something. It's not. No, he's secular. Trust, he's probably an atheist. He probably doesn't even believe in a God, considering his actions. If he believed that there was potential divine retribution for his actions, post-death, I don't think he would act the way that he does, and he wouldn't be apparently attempting to bribe and embezzle as well. It's become a problem, I suppose. That's about all.